Damn, okay, the people want Glarb. Hello everyone, welcome back to Too Sweet MTG, welcome to another Commander Deck Tech. We're swimming in the ponds of Bloomburrow again. Today, we're looking at Glarb, Calamity's Augur. It is a black, green and a blue for a 2/4 legendary creature, Frog Wizard Noble. It has Death Touch, and you may look at the top card of your library at any time. It also has, you may play lands and cast spells with mana value 4 or greater from the top of your library. It also has Tap to Surveil too. Glarb is a really cool commander. Effects that let us play cards on the top of our library are really strong, as it basically turns our library into an extension of our hand. This deck is going to be built around maximising that, by making Glarb a value engine for lands and spells that cost 4 or more mana. But to really take advantage of that, we're going to run as many expensive spells with built-in cost reduction as possible. The reason for this is that Glarb only cares that the number in the top right-hand corner is 4 or more, not how much we actually pay for it. Take a delve spell, for example, like Treasure Cruise. On top of our library, it costs 8, so we can cast it with Glarb. When we're actually casting the spell, we can use the delve ability to pay less actual mana for it. Same works with cards with alternate casting costs, cards like Force of Will or Snuff Out for example. We can cast them for free from the top of our library with Glarb in play, as long as the number in the top right hand corner is more than 4 and we satisfy the alternate cost. Another card type that works great with Glarb is MDFCs, especially the ones that cost more than 4 mana. Why these are great is that they work exactly as we want them to with Glarb. If the front side is more than 4 mana to cast, we can cast them from the top of our library. Or we can also play them on their backside from the top of our library as the land. There will be all of these different types of spells all throughout the video, so make sure you keep an eye out for them. The other way we can maximise the number of cards in a turn we can play off of our library is with deck manipulation. Basically, we're looking to have the ability to change what is on the top of our library. So if it's not something we can play or cast, we can change it and try and get something else. This means running more cards with things like Scry or Surveil, or it means running some shuffle effects. Glarb does give us a way of doing this with its Tap to Surveil ability, and what's nice is that a lot of the discount spells care about things in the graveyard, so using the Surveil to fill up the bin will be nice as well. What this all adds up to is that this is going to be a Sultai value deck. The way the deck wins and what it's working towards is to get to a point quicker than our opponents where we are just playing bigger and more impactful spells. We'll have so much value they just can't keep up with us. Some notes on actually playing this deck. Generally, if you can play a card from the top of your library when you have Glarb out, I would, as by doing it, it gives you access to the next card down, and then hopefully on and on. In terms of our game plan, what we're actually trying to do early game is get our commander out and start accruing value. We're trying to draw cards and get as much ramp into play as possible. In the mid game, we're trying to protect our board while building a value engine with our commander and the top of the deck manipulation cards. Then to win the game, what's nice about this deck is you can really tailor it to how you like to play. So you can play some creature buffs to turn things sideways. You can run some cards that work well with our high mana value spells. You can also run a combo. We'll go over some of my favourites at the end, but you really can make the deck your own here. Talking of making the deck your own, let's go over how this video will work. In this series, we don't give full deck lists, rather we break down the deck into different sections that the deck needs to work. We then give you a bunch of different options in those sections so you can make it work for your playstyle and your budget. Any card we mention will be down in the description below. While you're there, please consider giving the video a like. The first section of our deck is our top of the library matters cards. As we've mentioned, by controlling the top of our library, we'll be better placed to play multiple spells in a turn with Glarb. The first way of doing that is with shuffle effects. These are effects that cause us to change the top card of our library. Starting off first here, we have some fetch lands. These are great at helping us fix for mana in our 3-colour deck. Then if we ever don't like the top card of our library, we can crack one of them to go and get a land, and also change that top card of the library into something more useful. That could be a spell for us to cast, or a land for us to play. You obviously have the original fetches here, but I know they can be a little bit pricey. So for some more budget options, you have things like Escape Tunnel, Evolving Wilds, and Foreboding Landscape. Another way of shuffling our deck is with some land cyclers. The ones from Lord of the Rings are all excellent spells, with the bonus ability of letting us pay a single mana to change the top card of our library. Changing it up a bit now, we have a card like Sylvan Library. This lets us look at the top 3 cards of our library on our draw step, and then we can either pay some life to get some bonus cards into our hand, or we can draw one and arrange the other 2 how we want. Like for example, we can draw a cheap spell for us to cast from our hand and leave a land on top for us to play. You then have cards that let us further meddle with the top of our library. Sensei's Divining Top repeatedly lets us move around the top 3 cards of our library, and Scroll Rack lets us move cards from our hand to the top of our library, effectively letting us sculpt the perfect hand and sculpt the perfect top of our deck. Next up, we have some big creatures that also let us manipulate the top card of our deck, with Doom Whisperer and Dream Eater. Having some extra beef in the deck is always going to be nice, but having them play into our value engine as well is always going to be good. Doom Whisperer is especially good in the deck as we can surveil for as much life as we have. We then have some cheaper cantrips that let us manipulate the top card of our library. Cards like Brainstorm, Consider, Otherworldly Gaze, and Curate are all great cheap spells that can also count towards our card draw, but the fact they can also help us put what we want on top of our library is also going to be great. You then have Discovery Dispersal. The Discovery part is another decent cantrip that puts cards into our graveyard. The Dispersal part is a nice bit of bonus interaction that if we need to, we can also cast on the top of our library with our commander in play. Talking of card draw, for dedicated bits we are looking for somewhere between 10 to 12 cards here, but there will be some nice overlap with the previous cards we've mentioned. First up, we have Up the Beanstalk. This comes in and replaces itself with a card. Then whenever we cast one of our expensive spells, it lets us draw another card. Absolutely fantastic. When it comes to those big spells, we're looking for effects with either alternate costs like Gush, or cards with built-in cost reduction with things like Dig Through Time and Treasure Cruise. The fact these cards are banned in a bunch of formats is a good sign that we want to run them. We have another spell with some built-in cost reduction now with Oakhame Adversary. Another great card we can cast on the top of our library with our commander out that costs 2 less if an opponent has a green permanent in play. Then when this annoying little Death Toucher connects for combat damage, we get to draw a card. Again, exactly what we're after. We then have some evoke spells, which again we can either cast from our hand or from the top of our library with Glarb in play, which again we can evoke from either our hand or from the top of our library. We can evoke Wavesifter to make us some clues, which we can turn into card draw, or we can evoke Mulldrifter and Nulldrifter. We then have Tatyova, Benthic, Druid, and Aesi, Tyrant of Gyre Strait. These both have landfall, draw a card. With our commander, we are easily going to be hitting all of our land drops, as well as running some cards that let us play multiple lands in a turn. What these will do is turn that ramp into bonus card draw, and everyone always loves drawing more cards. Then finally in our card draw section we have some MDFCs. Cards like Waterlogged Teaching, Disciple of Freyleys, Seagate Restoration and Turntimber Symbiosis all have some kind of built-in card advantage to them. The fact that we can also play them as lands, including off the top of our deck with Glarb in play, is just fantastic and basically makes them free to run. Next up is our ramp section, and again we're looking for somewhere between 10 to 12 bits here. The first thing we're going to look at is cards that let us play multiple lands in a turn. Things like Exploration, Azusa, Dried of the Lycian Grove, Oracle of Mooley Dooley, and the Gitrog monster are all fantastic options for this, as what they will do is if we have multiple lands on top of our deck, we can chain them together until we can hit a spell to cast. We're also going to be running some cards that let us play lands from our graveyards. When you combine those with these, things are getting really stupid, as you can do things like start replaying your fetch lands. With Glarb out, these will honestly put so many lands onto the battlefield, they'll just be fantastic. We then have some ramp spells with some built-in cost reduction, in cards like Verdant Mastery and Nissa's Expedition. The fact that we can cast these on the top of our library is obviously great, and are still solid to cast from our hand. We then have some more standard ramp growth effects that we can run. These are cards that are going to get lands out of our deck and put them into play. The fact they can also let us shuffle our deck is going to be really nice, as it has more ways of controlling what's on top of our library. You then have cards like Honest Rustine, Savvy Trader, and Sage of the Beyond. These all reduce the cost of our spells in some way, which makes the more expensive spells easier to cast on the top of our library with our commander out. Then we have the Great Henge. This not only can be cost reduced, so that again we can easily cast it from the top of our library, but it's also some ramp, it's also some card draw. Yes, I know it's expensive, but if you have one, it'll be a great addition to the deck. Next up is our interaction section. Here we're looking for somewhere between 8 to 12 bits of targeted removal and board wipes to stop our opponent's plans. First up we have some fantastic removal spells in Deadly Rollick and Snuff Out. These are honestly some of the best bits of removal out there, as in this deck they're always basically going to be free to cast, again including from the top of our deck. In a similar vein, you also have Force of Vigor. Letting us answer 2 pesky artifacts or enchantments for free is always going to be solid. We then have some more targeted creature removal with some built-in cost reduction, with cards like Murderous Cut and Overwhelming Remorse. These are just great at answering whatever our opponents are putting down. We then have some cool creatures with Evoke up next, with Foundation Breaker, answering some artifacts and enchantments, and Shriekmaw, taking out a non-black, non-artifact creature. Again, just these being spells that we can evoke from the top of our library with Glarb in play is going to be great. We then also have some MDFCs with Fell the Profane and Hagra Mauling. The MDFCs are just so good in this deck, you really should just include them. We then have some other targeted removal spells, but in some way have some built-in cost reduction to them. Cards like Pylon, Price of Fame, Baleful Mastery, and Curtain's Call could all see a place in the deck. We then have a mini board wipe next in Massacre, and while one of our opponents does need a Plains to cast it for free, in a 4-player game that shouldn't be too difficult. You then have some more generic board wipes in these colours with things like Toxic Deluge, Damnation, and Azuri's Predation. Generally speaking, run the best ones that you have available to you here. Next up is a little bit of protection. As our commander is a card drawing value engine, it's probably going to paint a bit of a target on its back. This section is to help keep our froggy friend alive and well. First up, we have some awesome spells that we can either cast on the top of our library or from our hand for free. Misdirection can turn a kill spell back on our opponent's best creature, and then Force of Will just stops anything. And then we have another video where I'm going to recommend Malakir Rebirth and Revitalizing Repast. While we can't cast them from the top of our library, we can play the MDFC side as a land, on top of them just being fantastic cards, so that means I definitely want to sleeve them up. We then next have a little bit of recursion. I'd want somewhere between 4 to 6 bits here, primarily because of all the surveilling effects that we have. These recursion spells will allow us to get some of those bits back. First up, we have Mulldrifter the Gravetide. With this in play, we can bring back a little bit of everything. We are a Sultai deck, we might as well run one of the best cards in these colours. For some creature recursion, we have fantastic spells like Reanimate and Animate Dead, perfect at bringing back a key creature from our graveyard or our opponents. We then have cards like Conduit of Worlds and Ramunap Excavator. These let us play lands from our graveyards. As we've mentioned, combining these with our commander and things that let us play multiple lands in a turn are really good. Okay, we have the base of the deck, let's go over some dedicated ways of us winning the game. First up, we have Palantir of Orthanc. Realistically, this will just end up with us drawing some extra cards a turn, but if for any reason our opponents make us mill, they're about to take a whole lot of damage. Talking of, we have some more effects that do something similar. Cards like Twilight Prophet and Bane of Omen at some point in our turn let us flip the top card of our library and deal damage to some opponents equal to the mana value of that card. With all the big spells and the deck manipulation that we have in this deck, we'll be dealing a bunch of damage to our opponents every turn with these. Similarly, we also have Hitsugu and Gyre, a great creature that lets us sort the top of our library on the way in, and then pings an opponent on the way out. Leaning into the surveil aspect of the deck for a moment, we have a card like Wonder. It is going to be really easy to stick Wonder into our graveyard in this deck, and when we do, all of our creatures will perpetually gain flying. Solid Evasion is always a great way of winning a game of Magic. Another great way of winning a game of Magic is with cards like Craterhoof Behemoth. There's plenty of other effects to suit any budget out there, but sticking in a big creature that buffs up all of your other creatures is always very solid. With all the ramp we have in this deck, along with all the other creatures, it's going to be really easy to cast and win with it. Another way you can take the win cons is with some combos. One that goes really well in the deck is a card like Glacial Chasm. When this is combined with a card that lets you play multiple lands per turn, and a card that lets you play lands from your graveyard, what you end up with is you'll never be able to take damage again. The Glacial Chasm prevents all damage but requires us to sack a land when it comes into play. If we can play lands from our graveyards, we can just sacrifice the Chasm every turn instead of paying its upkeep cost, and then just play it again from our graveyard. If we can play multiple lands in a turn, we can then just replay the land we've sacked as well, meaning we never go down in lands. For some other combos, you can run things like Lily Splash Mentor and Peregrine Drake. What these do is these make you infinite mana. If you have both of them in play and at least 4 lands, you can pay 3 to flicker the Peregrine Drake. You can then float an extra mana, and then when the Drake comes back into play, it untaps all your lands and nets you that mana. You can then do that infinitely to make more mana than God. Another great infinite mana combo you could run are enchantments that let you pay a mana to untap the enchanted creature, and a creature like Bloom Tender that taps for more mana than it costs to untap it. There's a bunch of different cards that can do this, they'll all be pretty solid and they're all a great way of casting our big expensive spells. When you have infinite mana, you could stick it into an activated ability like Tassiger's. With infinite mana, you stick your whole deck into your graveyard, and then you return every non-land permanent from your deck into your hand. That could include that Craterhoof Behemoth we spoke about earlier. Or you could use it to cast a big X spell like Villainous Wealth, for when you want to really ruin someone's day. Rounding off the deck now with our land section, and we're looking for somewhere between 34 and 38 lands here. First up, we're going to have cards like Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth and Yavimaya Cradle of Growth. Just turning all of our lands into swamps or forests is going to make our fixing and casting our spells all the easier. We then have some cards that interact with our graveyard with things like Shifting Woodland and Takenuma Abandoned Mire. Really solid in any deck that's doing some self-milling like this one. For other fixing, I would run the best selection of dual lands and tri-lands that you have available to you. Try and run the ones that come into play untapped, no one has time to wait a turn. The only exception to that is with the Surveil lands. These are great because we can fetch them, they can fix us, and they can also manipulate the top card of our library. We want to round this off with somewhere between 12 and 15 basics, and you should be good to go. Alright, that's going to do it for the video. Thank you all very much for watching. If there's any other commanders from Bloomburrow you'd like me to take a look at, put them down in the comments and maybe, no promises, but maybe we'll check them out. But until next time, please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you all soon. Goodbye.